Namaste and welcome to today's episode of Future Leaders, produced by Today's Youth Asia. In the TV show, we discuss visionary ideas, talk about innovation, inspire youth leadership, and nurture concerns for a better world. My name is Drishti. In today's episode, we have with us Senior Superintendent of Police, Mr. Nawa Raj Silwal. He is also the Deputy Chief of Narcotic Drugs Control Law Enforcement Unit of Nepal Police.
The issue of drug trafficking and the use of narcotics is a very complex one. And we all know that the whole world is actually connected illegally for the drug trafficking, and Nepal is not devoid of it. In fact, Nepal unfortunately plays a very prominent role in importing and exporting drugs, working as a transit and at some point even as a producer. And personally I feel that besides terrorism and corruption, drug abuse and drug trafficking is a very powerful problem that can actually wipe out the young generation of any country. And in today's episode, that's what we are going to discuss. And we have with us S.S.P. Silwal. He's heading the Narcotics and Drug Control Unit of Nepal Police, and ever since he joined, he's been very successful with his efforts.
Substance abuse is a massive problem in our society. And more than that, it is massive a problem in the learning institutions, in colleges and universities, and even in the schools. Our younger generations, our future Nepal is actually at stake. And the stakeholders, or the person or the entities who are supposed to take care of them, are unaware of the growing problems, the threats that are created in the society. I was not aware that it is such a massive, in terms of gravity and degree. We need to concentrate on promoting, protecting our youths, protecting our people who will take Nepal to the world arena tomorrow. I've started working with various other partners also, which had not been the case in the past. We focused on actually reducing the demand of narcotics, of substance in the community, in the schools and colleges. But that really didn't work much, because all we do is we do around 10% of the problems. 90% of the problems are unattended. 99% of the domestic violences are attributed to the use of drugs, including alcohol, of course. And 50 to 60% of the crimes is connected to the use of substance. Because students, youths, they need to buy drugs, they need money, and their parents cannot afford. So what they do is they go, they loot money, they pickpocket, or they go around stealing, or even kidnapping and planning, heinous crimes to get money for drugs. They are these producers and then these dealers of narcotic drugs. They are actually creating the market. They have innovative ideas. This is something we police alone cannot find a solution to. Media person, students, and parents, and school teachers, guardians, and all the stakeholders of the society should come together and work. If we are to protect our future generation, parents should be aware of what their kids are doing, whether their behavior is getting changed, whether they are doing fine or not. And another crucial part is of the college or the learning institution itself. They should be held responsible also, because it is their responsibility to take care of the kids that they teach. They're not just distributing the certificates. They should also make sure that they produce a personality that is workable, that can pay attention, that can contribute to the cause of the nation tomorrow.
The question which I'm going to ask is something bothering me a lot. I realize that Nepal, or let's say Kathmandu, is still world's #1 best hippie destination. It is considered to be a peaceful haven for narcotic consumers. Well, what I want to ask is, we are unwillingly presenting ourselves in the field of narcotic tourism. So what are the precautionary measures which we are taking from government side?
whoever posted this information in the website, I do not agree to this information anyway. The areas where actually tourists would try to find ways to, smoke hashish or stuff like that. Let's about Thamel. There are a couple of operations we carried out in the last few weeks' time, where one American, one German, and a Russian also were caught actually in the middle of dealing with this stuff. And there are also people who actually are getting this pharmaceutical drugs from the pharmacies in Tamil, because they do not sell those stuff to Nepalese, but they're happily selling it to the foreigners. So they procure such drugs and ship it to the destinations back home or elsewhere, wherever they would like to send it to. And the message that we've been able to send across the world with those three seizures, it's loud and clear. For the promising tourists or whoever would like to travel to Nepal to smoke hashish or whatever, it's no longer such a safe place to come and smoke hashish, because you'll be caught, or you'll find a place where you'll be caught between criminal justice system and then your diplomatic agency involved and all that.
Yes, sir. Moving forward, there are several international conventions held upon narcotic and its issues. So why is it it is dealt in various ways? In case of Singapore, death penalty is sure, and in some other countries they just charge you some amount and leave you free. So why is it dealt differently in different countries?
We have been a party to the international convention which guarantees that we abolish death penalty. So we cannot actually introduce an act in our country which will ensure a death penalty, because we have been a party to the covenant which prohibits practicing of death penalty. Like in the case of, we have actually, I'd like to cite an example to you actually. A Thai lady was caught, was intercepted in TIA, International Airport in Kathmandu. She was actually traveling from Peru via Dubai, and she actually spent 2 nights in Kathmandu, and she was going to, it was destined to Bangkok, but she was going to Kuala Lumpur. And we intercepted her. And she said she was happy to be caught, to be arrested in Nepal, because we do not have death penalty. I'm not a proponent of death penalty, because people do not born as a criminal. They get into criminal activities because of several factors, environmental factors, social factors, and educational and family and all that. If you compare with the countries where they have death penalties and our country where we do not have death penalty, I think we're better off, because we respect the life, human life. We also respect the dignity, and we also actually look into the perspective of the room where a criminal can be transformed into a good citizen, where tomorrow he can actually contribute to the greater society.
What kind of narcotic tolerance is accepted in Nepal?
We have a provision in the law where if you find a substance abuser, the police can arrest him and then put him in a trial, and that will give him up to 1 month imprisonment. But later, over the last few years, we have realized that this is not a proper solution, because the law is on its way to get amended, but we have ceased to practice that provision of arresting an abuser and putting him in jail. I think it's better we send them to the rehabilitation centers. If you abuse hashish or marijuana, you have a lesser penalty, quite less. But if you go into hard drugs like white sugar or cocaine, it's like life imprisonment and very, very severe penalties.
So from your perspective, what could be the concrete reasons that especially large number of youth are involved on this issue?
Large number of youths are involved in substance abuse because they are not properly attended. Youths need to be monitored. I'm not saying that they should be controlled all times, no. But in terms of guidance or counseling, or parents or teachers or whoever guardians are taking care of them, they should know that know the activities they are involved in. Our schools, our institutions are more of a business prospect. They do not care much about the outer personality of a student. They like to focus more on the studies, books and courses, and as long as you are fine with your performance in the tests and examination, they're fine. They don't care whether after schools you go out, get into substance abuse or whatever. They don't care.
Drug is a very expensive product. They make a lot of money, and for them, the young population is a huge market. It's a huge business perspective for whoever is behind the trade. And in the movies, they are portrayed very clear as villains, but maybe in the real society, the guys behind this business could be running a supermarket in the city, or be a respectable politician, or be in the government service. It's very hidden about who the people are. And the network is so strong, it's very difficult to reach the end point because it's at different levels. And if you look at the other aspect, the education institutes, the more reputed they are, they think they're drug-free. Now, the reputation of an educational institution has nothing to do with they being devoid of the drug abuse. It's not that the best colleges in the world are drugs-free, and the small schools and colleges in some remote areas are full of drugs. It's pretty wide-reached, not just in Nepal, but even in developed countries with strict laws. So, and families also, if the parents have respectable position, or if they are just good people, they think because of their goodness or their greatness, their children are always going to be devoid of the problem. So it's also this feeling within the educational institutes and families thinking that their children will not have this problem. And they rule out this possibility, and that's where vulnerability comes in. And if you see, like when our parents raise us, within the very first 2-3 years of our age, they put a lot of vaccine into our body against diseases. But they don't realize that drug abuse could be the worst disease, because it kills us while we are still young. It's not like in the movies that some villain will come in a big car and then force a drug to you. This can come through a relative whom you trust. This can come from a friend whom you can trust, and they will get hold of you when you are most vulnerable. Like if you have failed in examination, or if you had a bad relationship, because as a teenager in a modern life, you get into relationships, and or if you have a bad day in the school or in college or at home, and that's the time when they come to you. And at that point, you don't think it as a problem, but you take it as a solution to your problem. And by the time you realize it's a problem, you have already committed a crime. You can be jailed for that, and at that point, it doesn't matter how we got into it. So it gets very complicated, and when you find out that you're in trouble, you need help, you really cannot reach out to anybody for help, because you will have to tell people that you got into this crime. And that's why the young people are very sought out. And in recent time, it's even worse that the issues with street children, and also in the past, young girls were not sent to school. I mean, the girls were not sent to school at all. So now that's another sector that the drug traffickers, the drug sellers are looking into, is when women going to school have generally more problems, because this is the first generation that is having women having free access to education compared to the past. And they are having to deal with more issues compared to the next generation, because they have to balance between the old society, the modern society, their home, their work, the education, and so that's another sector that the drug dealers are looking into. But we always think that my family, my friend is always going to stay safe, so let's not talk about it. Let's not discuss about it. And if you look at it, there's a lot of money invested by the bad guys into the business, and there's a lot of money invested into rehab by the development agencies, but there's no concentration in between. Like in the law enforcement, that's the least focus of the government or the UN or the development agencies. The school do not employ a psychologist, because if you are at your down moment, you could go to a psychologist for help, or you could go to drugs for the escape. So if you're not given the the way out, a positive way out, then you're going to go to the negative way out. And at a young age, that's not your fault.
The main person who actually gets the proceed of the drug transaction is behind the curtain. He's never seen. And he probably is enjoying his life in different different strata. I mean, he probably is playing a role of politician. He's probably doing a good businessman, role. Or he's probably doing academics, whatever. And the problem today, this is the problem of entire law enforcement around the world. Because Americans, DEA, they invest billions of dollars to find out one person who's actually sitting behind the curtain and running the show. He probably is a minister somewhere. You never know. Or a priest in a church or whatever. He has a different identity in the community. Why do you respect it? So this is very difficult issue, nature of the crime, where law enforcement has a very hard time dealing with.
So when we say drugs, it's generally understood as marijuana, cocaine, heroin, opium, and cannabis. So, but people don't understand, and like you've already mentioned, there are the medical aspects of drugs as well. And doctors who can easily access the drugs, they're also into drugs, and they're using it. People can get the sedatives without any prescriptions. And how has the police looked into it? And has the government formulated any kind of laws regarding it?
The amount of these restricted drugs that are sold under strict doctor prescription of the medical practices are to be done on record. All the transactions of such drugs need to be recorded, and that record goes to the Home Ministry through there's a department of drug administrations, and they collect all the information of the amount of drugs that are sold by particular pharmacies. There's a regulation, actually. There's a policy, but it is not adhered to. There are a lot of loopholes in it. Those who are in substance abuse. So we're investigating a couple of issues where these youths actually they've printed the prescription, doctor's prescription, in the press. We have actually intercepted a pharmacy in one of the corners of Kathmandu, where a person was selling diazepam and buprenorphine without prescription. There is an association of medical practitioners, and there's also an association of medical professionals where they sell. They have an association, and they have a group of people actually. They're supposed to follow the government policies and all that. So we've actually notified them that make sure that your pharmacies are doing fine and following the policies that the government has formulated. There are 6,000 pharmacies in Kathmandu Valley alone, but we're also considering getting into the interception of pharmacies and all that. It will probably have a better result in the days ahead.
Media and police has been continuously reporting that Nepal is the transit point for the drug smuggling. Like for example, the drugs produced in Golden Triangle, like Laos, Vietnam, and Myanmar, those has been smuggled through our point. Nepal is taken as the transit point. So these drugs are transferred to the European countries and some other countries. What your department is doing, and how far your department is informed regarding the international drugs trafficking to other countries?
It used to be like in late 70s, early 80s, Nepal used to be one of the transit points of drug trafficking. But because given the fact that Golden Crescent, which actually produces Afghanistan, let's say Afghanistan produces more than 90% of the opioids like white sugar and brown sugar that produced in the world, and the market, like 50% of that substance market is in America, and 25% is Europe, and 25% is rest of the world. Because there are some instances of the recent intervention that we've been able to make also tells us that there are indications that Nepal might come up as a transit point of drug trafficking in the coming decades or years to come. If international community, views Nepal as a transit point to international drug trafficking, then that would be, something we'd not be happy with. So we'd like to protect the reputation of our country. So we are committed to that. Law enforcement is quite committed to that, and we have asked the government to actually put in place these, extra measures which can make sure that such activities are intercepted. The capacity of our system is updated, and skill development programs of our people are introduced, and that is taking place. I would also like to, Santosh is right here, because media should play a vital role in it.
If the media also consciously focus on the punishments that the drug traffickers get after they are caught, it'll also kind of create fear among the common people and also the youths that this is what happens when you get caught, because most of the time we don't hear the news about what happens after they're arrested. There's no follow-up stories in the media. So it's like a constant, if you're constantly reminded of the consequences, then you stay away from it.
We look forward to your feedback. Our email address is youthTYA@gmail.com. If you need to connect to Nepal Police, the phone number is 100. Thank you for watching us. We look forward to being with you next week at the same time. Have a nice week. Namaste.